Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is September 28th, 2024, and Barcelona just suffered their first defeat of La Liga season in what is the eighth fixture of the season against Osasuna, losing at El Sadar 4-2 with a team that was heavily rotated. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. This is the Barca News post-match live analysis where we analyze Barcelona matches as soon as they end and where I get to interact with you lovely people in the chat section by reading your comments, answering your questions, and getting the discussion going. This is not to be confused with the Barca News podcast, which are on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where we get to discuss Barcelona news. Now, having said all that, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. If you are looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure to hit Bag, Gold Kits, or Fanatics. And if you are looking to place any sports bets, make sure to bet us. All links are in the description. If you click on them, you will be helping this channel, but you would also be helping yourself because you do get access to some pretty cool deals and offers. Anyways, having said all that, let's start with the match analysis because today, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona suffered their first defeat of this La Liga season, and it came at the hands of Osasuna, where Barcelona lost at El Sadar 4-2 with a team that had a lot of rotations ahead of the Champions League match on Tuesday against Young Boys. Now, I did do the first Barca News watch along today where I watched the match with you guys. It was pretty fun. I had a lot of good times. If you guys did too, and if you want me to continue doing these watch alongs, please let me know. I will be happy to do so. And probably not going to be able to do the Champions League ones because they are doing the week. And of course, I do have to work. I'm usually at work during the week. But on the weekends, I could do these watch-alongs. And again, I had fun. I just want to keep seeing them. Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section when the podcast ends or this live stream ends. So back to the match. Because this was definitely going to be a challenging match, a difficult match. You know, a lot of people like to write Osasuna off as some bottom of the table team, a small team. Not at all. Osasuna have been a tough opponent in the last at least 2-3 seasons. It's a team that knows how to defend well and knows how to exploit the back of their opposing teams with those counterattacks, with those fast passes to their attackers, and mostly fast passes to their wingers who like to play very close to the center forward. And what that causes is it creates a confusion for the defense of the opposing team where the wingers can either exploit that by scoring the goals or they pass it to their center forward who's usually left alone because the defense immediately runs to cover the two wingers that Osasuna has. So it was a challenging opponent from the get-go, especially at their stadium because Osasuna before this match had 11 points in La Liga. 10 out of those points had come at El Sadar because this is a team that knows how to win at their home stadium. So this was going to be a challenging match for Barcelona from the get-go. And what made it more challenging is all the rotations that Hansi Flick employed for this match because, of course, the players needed some rest. They had been playing a lot of matches back-to-back. And with the Champions League match on Tuesday, only 2 days away, rotations were needed, and that's what happened. But I do think that Flick made a big mistake in the rotations. Now, before we talk about Flick's mistake, let's look at the actual lineup that Hansi Flick employed today. We'll make this bigger, but of course, we had Iñaki Peña in goal, replacing the injured Ter Stegen. Jules Koundé started in the right-back position. We had Sergi Dominguez taking the place of Iñigo Martinez, right next to Pau Cubarsí. Gerard Martinez filling in for Alejandro Balde. So 2 changes in the defensive line. In the midfield, we had Eric Garcia, Pablo Torre, and Pedri. So Marc Casado getting that rest. And of course, Eric Garcia filling that defensive midfield position now that Olmo, Fermin, and even Christensen are all injured. And in the front, we had Ferran Torres, Lewandowski, and Pau Victor. So 2 rotations in the attacking line, Ferran taking the place of Lamine and Pau Victor taking the place of Rafinha. Now, looking at this lineup, I have to say, I got to start by saying I understand the need to rotate. I don't blame Flick for rotating. That is not the problem here. The problem is how he rotated. Because this season, as we've seen, the calendar is absolutely insane. We have matches every 3-4 days. The players need to be rotated. The players need to be rested. Because if you don't rest them, injuries happen. And it's better to miss a player for one match due to rotation than miss them for a whole month due to injuries. You know, the last thing we want to do is play Lamine Yamal against Osasuna. God forbid he tears his ACL because of an injury, and now he's out for a whole year versus having missed the Osasuna match and have him be available for the rest of the season. So I don't blame Flick for rotating. Rotations are needed, especially since we do have a Champions League match on Tuesday. And I'd rather rotate in La Liga, where we have 38 matches, than rotate in the Champions League, where we only have 8. Because today, with the loss in La Liga, we're still at the top of the league, even with this defeat. If we lose against Young Boys, we're in deep trouble in the Champions League. So, again, I don't blame Flick for rotating. But what I do blame Flick for is how he rotated. And the rotations were excessive because we had several rotation in each line. And I think that's where he made the mistake. Look at this lineup. 2 rotations in the defensive line. And these are rotations that were made with Barca Athletic players. That's too much. I think if you're going to be putting Barca Athletic players, 1 rotation per line would have made more sense. In the midfield, we had Eric, who even though did a good job, remember, that's not his starting position, and also Pablo Torre, who's also not been playing that much. So that's 2 rotations in the midfield. And in the attack, also 2 rotations with Ferran and Pau Victor. That is too much. I think that this could have been done in a better way. For example, in a defensive line, instead of having Sergi Dominguez and Pau Cubarsí start there, how about have Eric Garcia and Pau Cubarsí? That still would have rested Íñigo Martínez, and you would have had an Olympic gold winning duo, because that was the starting duo for Spain, Eric Garcia and Pau Cubarsí in the Olympics. So you could have had Pau and Eric as the center backs. That still would have rested Íñigo Martínez, which was the goal, because Íñigo has played 90 minutes of every single match. Íñigo was still gotten rested. Íñigo still would have been available for the Champions League, which is where you need him, because he's a veteran. He has plenty of experience. So the goal would have still been met, and you would have had a better duo in a defensive position, because Pau Cubarsí and Eric Garcia have played all the Olympics together. They won gold together. They know how to play together in that position. So that would have been a better alternative. Gerard Martin for Alejandro Balde. This one maybe was not that obvious, because after all, we've seen Gerard Martin substitute Alejandro Balde a lot. So I don't know if we can blame Flick for this one. Gerard Martin did not have the best of matches, but I think, was Balde really needed to be rotated? I think that's the real question. Not whether we should have rotated Martin for Balde, because Balde has been rested in several matches. So I don't know if that rotation was necessary, but either way, I don't blame Flick for this one, because we've seen Gerard Martin substitute for Balde multiple occasions. He's usually done a good job. Today was not one of those days. And then in the attack, Ferran and Pau Victor at the same time. I don't know if that was the right move. I get that Lamine needed to be rested, and since we don't have that many options, okay, fine, bring in Ferran. How about have Ferran and Rafinha play? And then maybe take out Rafinha and bring in Ansu Fati. But to have both Ferran and Pau Victor at the same time, Pau Victor, who's had barely any minutes in first division this season, and Ferran, who is as useless as me playing for Barcelona, I don't know if that was the right move. Plus, what's going on with Ansu? You telling me Ferran needed to stay on the field the whole match and not bring Ansu? Now, I get it. The last substitution, Ansu was supposed to come in, then Sergio Dominguez requested a substitution, so then Ansu had to sit back down. But if you're going to risk it with all these rotations, why not risk it with Ansu? So mistakes were made today for sure. Again, I don't blame Hansi Flick for rotating the players. I think it was very much needed. These players needed rest. especially Lamine and Rafinha, and Inigo, who played 90 minutes of every match. But I think mistakes were done on how the rotations were completed. Now, to be a little bit fair to Hansi Flick, this also has to do with Barcelona's injury problems, because we do have 8 injured players that could have easily been rotated without any difference, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. For example, in the center back position, we could have easily rotated Inigo and Cubarsí with Araujo and Christensen had the two of them be available, but they're not, right? In the midfield, we could have easily rotated Casado, who needed rest, with Gabi, Frankie, plenty of options, right? Same with Dani Olmo and Fermin. The two of them are injured. They too could have gone into rotation in the front, right? Maybe in the place of Ferran, we could have had Fermin, who's played as a winger before, even though he's not a winger, right? So given the injuries, I get it that Flick had to use a lot of reserve team players, so that also conditioned this loss. But again, I think this rotations could have done better. I don't blame Flick for rotating, but I do blame Flick for how the rotations were made. Definitely a big mistake on the German coach, but mistakes were bound to happen. This is a brand new coach taking over a new team, a new project, lots of new players. So mistakes were bound to happen. Today, that mistake happened. That mistake cost us 3 points. So hopefully Flick can learn, because there was a lot to learn from today. For example, you cannot rotate this way. You cannot start a match only with 4 starters and 7 substitutes. That's just not something that can be done in La Liga, especially against a team like Osasuna in their own stadium. Another lesson from today: you cannot go to war with Ferran Torres. You just can't. Ferran Torres has no place on this team. If you want to use them to rotate players, that's fine. Bring them in the last 20, 30 minutes to give rest to some players. Ferran is not someone that you can rely on for 90 minutes, especially not against an opponent like Osasuna in their own stadium. So, mistakes were made today. I think it could all be chucked to Hansi Flick, unfortunately. I hope he learned from it, and I hope these mistakes are not made again, because the season is still long. Rotations are still going to need to happen. So I hope Flick learned from today's lesson, and I hope Flick will be able to rotate better down the road. Now, of course, down the road, we are going to have more players available, right? Olmo, Fermin, Gabi, they're all set to come back. And Frankie, right? At least after the winter break. Araujo and Christensen, they're set to come back beginning of next year. So we will have more options down the road to be able to rotate better. But I hope Flick learned his lesson from this, because rotation will need to continue happening, and Flick needs to manage these rotations better. So I hope he learned today so he can manage those rotations better. I think another mistake, honestly, was also not rotating properly before, because there was a lot of matches where we won 5-0, 7-0, or 7-1, however, big victories where Lamine Yamal played the whole match. Did we really need to play Lamine Yamal the entire match against Villarreal when that match was over by the 60th minute? Did we really need Lamine Yamal to play the entire match against Real Valladolid, where we won? I think that was another mistake, where there was a lot of matches where Barcelona had already won convincingly before the 90th minute, and yet players like Lamine, like Rafinha, continued on the field when they should have been brought out. So now, having those players played all those minutes that they didn't need to play, all of a sudden they were, Flick found them tired, and he had to all of a sudden rotate so much in this match, where those rotations could have been handled better from the beginning, and maybe Flick wouldn't have needed to rotate so many players in today's match. Now let's listen to the statement of Hansi Flick in the post-match press conference, and then we will do the comments. But Hansi Flick did explain what happened today as far as the loss, the rotations, and everything. So let's listen to that.
I think it was necessary, because we had so many matches, and a lot of players had played so many minutes, and we have to take care. I have to take care. This is my responsibility. And if you want to blame someone for this defeat, and take me, it's okay. I think we are on the right way. And on Tuesday, it's a really important match in the Champions League, and we have only 2 days to prepare well, to recover and everything. So we will do that, and hopefully then we see the other face from our team. I think.
So there you have it. Hansi Flick saying that, rotations were needed to be done, which again, I agree 100%. Rotations needed to be done. But also Flick saying that, if you want to blame someone, blame him because it is his fault. So I agree with Flick. Again, rotations needed to be done, but they needed to be done in a better way. And I think today Flick made a mistake. I hope he learns from it, because rotations are going to need to keep happening, but we need to do them in a better way. Now, I do like that Flick assumes responsibility. He says, mistakes were done. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I agree 100%. That's why I'm not going through player by player, because honestly, the way this rotation happened, you really cannot blame the player. Ferran Torres, different case, because he's been awful since he arrived in Barcelona 2.5 years ago. So we can blame him, or we can say bad things about him. But overall, you really cannot blame the players. When you throw in all these players that have not played together all season, it's not going to happen, right? And that sucks, because that then can curtail the growth of some players. Sergio Dominguez, he's an incredibly promising center back. Today, he was awful. Why? Because he was just thrown in there. He's never played with Cubarsí an entire match in First Division. He's never played with Gerard Martin an entire match in First Division. He's never played with Koundé an entire match in First Division. He's never played with the midfield. So you throw him in there. Of course, he's going to make mistakes like the penalty kick. Of course, he's going to make, bad decisions, because it's his first time starting. And now he looks bad. Now the fans are turning against him. Now the fans are like, Sergio Dominguez sucks. He better not play ever again. And he doesn't. He's a promising center back that was thrown into a situation where he should have never been thrown into. And now he looks bad because the bad decision of Flick, right? Same thing with Pau Victor, right? Pau Victor, he scored a goal. He didn't have his best of his matches because he's never played with Ferran. He's never played with Lewandowski an entire 90 minutes of a First Division match. And now he just looks bad because he was thrown into a situation where he should have never been thrown in. When you have only 4 starters and seven substitutes who never played together, the team is just not going to work well. There's not going to be chemistry. There's not going to be understanding. And the players are going to make mistakes. The players are going to look bad. And now, a lot of them are going to take the brunt of it, because fans are going to be like, oh, this guy was that guy, because fans are always going to like the scapegoat. But in reality, it was Flick's fault. So I hope Flick learned his mistake. And first defeat, we're still at the top of La Liga. We're still 4 points ahead of Real Madrid. Of course, Madrid do have to play tomorrow against Atletico de Madrid in the Madrid derby. We'll see what happens. But even if Real Madrid win, we would still be top of the table. So at least we have that silver lining. But this mistake cannot be repeated again. All right, let's do the comment section, and then we will end this. Philip says, Visca Barca. Yes, Visca Barca, my friends. Luke says, 5 rotations just seems too much for an away match. I agree with you. Jamie says, I think Mo should only analysis the 10 Barcelona players that were on the game. Yeah, my friend, I feel you. Tizan says, although Hansi Flick is doing well, but he's have to prioritize one, because it is too early to win Champions League and La Liga at the same time, because this should not be an excuse of being a loss against Osasuna. Well, here's the thing. Barcelona competes for everything. It's just the nature of it. So you cannot be picking and choosing trophies, because a team as big as Barcelona should be able to compete in everything. And I'm not saying winning. I'm not saying Barcelona should win the treble every season. That's obviously impossible. But a team as big as Barcelona should be able to compete in all competitions. We're a team with a budget bigger than most clubs can even dream of, with some of the best players in the world. So you cannot be asking Barcelona not to compete for other trophies. The same as Real Madrid, the same as Manchester City, the same as Arsenal, Liverpool. All these clubs are expected to compete in all competitions because they have the means and the resources to do it. All right, let's see. We do have the first donation. Mustafa, who says, I'm sure Flick wants to give us a taste of losing. How the heck will he rely on that lineup to win the game? Ferran played 90 minutes for heaven's sake. Yeah, definitely a mistake in how he rotated the team, but I hope he learned from it. And, silver lining, we're going to have a lot more available players down the road. So rotations are going to be a lot easier. Imagine today's match with all those rotations. Same thing, 5 rotations. But instead of Sergio Dominguez, Araujo or Christensen, right? Instead of Pablo Torre, Dani Olmo. Instead of Eric Garcia, Marc Bernal, right? You get the point. Let's see. Ibrahim says, how can he use Ferran Torres for full 90 minutes with the kind of useless ball he plays today? I think it has to do with there's nobody to replace Lamine, right? You rest Lamine, who takes his place, right? But I do think that Ansu should have came in earlier for Ferran Torres. And this also highlights that we still have some depth problem with our squad. Our midfield is fine, and our backline is fine, right? We still have Araujo, Christensen are injured. Once they come back, now we have 4 center backs with Iñigo and Pau. Our midfield is pretty stacked. We have Pedri, Gabi, Frankie, Fermin, Olmo, Eric Garcia, Christensen, who can also play in that. We're fine there. But our front line is still lacking depth. Center forward, maybe not so much. We can have Lewy, we can have Pau Victor. Those two could rotate technically. On the right, we have Lamine. On the left, we have Rafinha, and then there's nobody to substitute him, right? There's nobody that can play in Lamine's place. And then we don't have natural left winger. So even with Rafinha starting, he's still not a natural left winger. So we still have a depth problem with our attack line. And that's something that is going to have to be addressed. Cherno says, hi, Mo. I traveled to the province today and was unable to watch the game. One of my Madridista friends called me and broke the sad news to me. What went wrong? What I just mentioned, the rotations were too much against a complicated opponent in a tough stadium. And we do have another donation. Chanjuk says, Ter Stegen haters are suddenly quiet. I don't think Peña is Barca level goalkeeper. He just doesn't have the reflexes of a top goalkeeper. We need a better backup goalkeeper. He is a good backup goalkeeper, but that's the problem. He's a backup goalkeeper. He's not a starting goalkeeper, right? So I agree that he's not at the level of being the starting goalkeeper of Barcelona, but he's at the level of being a backup goalkeeper because he is a good backup goalkeeper, just not a good starting, right? Now, I wouldn't blame Iñaki Peña for the loss today, but I do agree that we need a better starting goalkeeper. JK says, hi, Mo. Hello from Sydney. Flick has given enough chance to Ferran, and he has shown and confirmed that he is not Barca level. Therefore, we need to ship away as soon as there is an opportunity. That's the problem, right? There is no opportunity. Barcelona have been trying to get Ferran out of the club for 2 summers now. Summer of 23 and then this past summer in 24. But the problem is Ferran keeps saying, I don't want to leave, I don't want to leave. So there's not much you could do. Not to mention that there aren't many suitors. Even if Ferran says I want to leave, there aren't many clubs out there who even actually want him. Noel says, Cubarsí Dominguez at CB was too risky. As good as he is, Cubarsí still lacks experience to command the defense. Also keep Lamine or Rafinha in the starting lineup, but omitting them both is criminal. I think that Cubarsí should have started with Eric. That would have still rested Iñigo Martinez, but we would have still had 2 solid center backs that know how to play together. Because remember, Eric and Pau were both the starting center backs for Spain in the Olympics. Noel says, Osasuna was 5th in long passes coming into this game. We missed Iñigo commanding the defense to execute proper offside traps like against Villarreal. I agree with you 100%. Emmanuel says, Mo, I know you're not happy tonight with the mistake from our man tonight, but game. I don't think I understood what you were saying. And Mark says, it's more than chemistry, Mo. Some of those players are not Barcelona level. We do have that problem too. Some players are just not good enough for Barcelona. Ferran being the perfect example of that. But yeah, lots of mistakes today. George Bro says, I really don't understand why Flick insists on Gerard Martin when he got Hector Fort. I'm not being a hater, but Gerard Martin is not good enough. Hector Fort is a right back. So I think Koundé could have been either rested and had Hector Fort play in his place, But then it also makes you wonder what Brian Zaragoza could have been able to do against someone like Hector Fort. Or at least, if he wanted to rest Iñigo Martinez, and this could have been another valuable option, is have Cubarsí and Koundé in a center back position. So you still rest in Iñigo. You have someone solid like Koundé helping Cubarsí out, and have Hector Fort in the right back position, right? Because that would have still covered the problem of Brian Zaragoza, because when Brian Zaragoza, if he would have gotten past Hector Fort, then you would have had Koundé right there ready to stop him. So that could have been another option versus having Pau and Sergi Dominguez, two young players who just cannot play together because they're too young and they're both too inexperienced. Cubarsí is amazing, but he still needs someone experienced next to him in order to help him out. Neither shadow of turning says, so Flick has deliberately left Ferran in so that he can prove how useless he is. I will not be surprised if this is his last appearance. I just don't see Ferran starting again after today. I think Flick probably learned his lesson today that Ferran is just not someone you can count on for the full 90 minutes. So he's going to have to figure out a way on how to rotate Lamine without using Ferran. So maybe Ferran could replace Lamine in the final 30 minutes in matches that are already won, right? Or maybe, if Lamine needs an entire match to rest, and maybe have Rafinha play in his place, Pau Victor on the left, and then bring in Ferran the last 20, 30 minutes to relieve Rafinha, because Rafinha is going to need rest too. And then when Rafinha needs a full match, then play Lamine, have Pau Victor play on the left, and maybe bring in Ferran for Pau Victor the last 30 minutes or for Lamine the last 30 minutes. The point is, Ferran cannot rotate with players an entire 90 minutes. I think Flick learned that lesson today because it just can't happen. I think Ferran is fine rotating with players by coming in off the bench the last 20, 30 minutes. That's cool. But to play him full 90 minutes is just not it. Rodriguez says, I have your Barca shirt. Great design. How can get it? It's actually a Peña shirt. Let me remove that comment. It is, I don't know, for some of you who've been watching the channel for a while. What is all this? Why is it so dusty? I went to Barcelona earlier this year with the Peñas, with a lot of members of the Peñas from the U.S. And while this is the shirt we were, U.S. Peñas Barca Tour 23-24 season. I also went last year with them too. It was really fun. We went to Montjuic. We watched the Valencia match. The year before, we went to Camp Nou, and it was also Valencia match. We didn't plan it. It was just pure coincidence, but we saw Valencia 2 years in a row. Luke says, it proves how important Iñigo and Ter Stegen are when it comes to commanding the defense. Yes, which is funny because people were saying for the longest time how trash Iñigo is and how old he is, and Barcelona should just get rid of him and not register him because Barcelona were having a problem registering him. And Ter Stegen, we all saw that Ter Stegen out. And look, be careful what you wish for, guys. Be careful what you wish for. Williams Alex says, the players are playing too many games and it makes them tired. I also blame UEFA and FIFA for this. We play every 3 games. It's too much. I do agree the calendar is too much. It's too hectic. FIFA and UEFA are prioritizing profits over the health of the player and the longevity of their career. I agree 200% with that. But at the end of the day, that's the calendar right now. We have to deal with it. And Flick should have dealt with it better. Chicken Tajin says, the more this goes, the more I realize how much Flick fucked up. He did. Hopefully he learns from it. Slurk says, brother, we need ASAP a backup for Balde because Martinez is nuts. And then Williams Alex says, the players... Oh, wait. Already read that. Let's do a couple more comments and then we will end this. Because I think we've... Let's see. William Castro says, Flick is playing with his job. This is Barca, one of the biggest clubs in the world. What kind of a lineup and sub was that? Ferran, goodness. Meanwhile, I don't know if he's playing with his job. I think he tried something. He needed to rotate player. He tried a formation. It did not work. It's trial and error. It's just the nature of any new project. There's always going to be trial and errors. And Gabriel Smith says, we had Ansu on the bench. Why didn't Flick use him? Ansu is far better than Ferran. That's a good question. I did see Ansu getting ready to come in as the 5th sub, but then Sergi Dominguez requested a substitution because he hurt himself. So Ansu had to sit back down. So to be fair to Flick, he did try to bring Ansu in, but I do think that Ansu should have been brought in much earlier. And Mike says, Mo, I think that the situation is bad for big teams because the small teams don't got to worry about international breaks because their players aren't the level of the big clubs. So this hectic calendar. I agree. They also don't play Champions League, right? Or maybe the mid-table teams, they'll play either Europa or Conference League. But then the bottom 10, they don't have to worry about international breaks because their players don't get called up to their teams. They also don't have to worry about European competition. So the only thing they play is La Liga and la Copa del Rey. And Copa del Rey doesn't start until, the second half of the season. For the first half of the season, they're only playing 1 game per week. Sometimes 2 games per week. But overall, they don't have that much tiredness. But anyways, that is all for today, ladies and gentlemen. Tough defeat. 4-2 is tough. It's tough. It's definitely tough. But mistakes were made. Again, I don't blame Hansi Flick for implementing rotations. I think rotations were needed, but I do blame him on how he handled rotating the players. I think he rotated too much. And as a result, the team did not work. And as a result, we lost this match, lost 3 points, and we lost our streak, right? We were hoping to go 8 for 8, but now it's 7 out of 8. Tough defeat. Let's hope that Flick learns from this mistake so we can keep growing. We can keep getting better. On Tuesday, we have the Champions League against Young Boys. So hopefully the team and Flick can dust themselves off and give us a good performance in the European competition. That is it. I will be uploading a news video later tonight. So thank you for tuning in, for your likes, your comments, your subscriptions, and your generous donations. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps the algorithm recommend this video to people who've never seen it. And don't forget to subscribe because we're very, 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 very close to the 100K. So let's cross that line together. I will see you in tonight's video. And as always, Visca Barça.